I was 19 when this happened, old enough to feel independent, but still stupid enough to think bad things only happen to other people. I lived in a small town outside the city, the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and think danger is something you watch on Netflix, not something waiting for you in a parking lot. One night after closing my shift at a grocery store, I stayed late because a coworker didn't show up. By the time I finished cleaning, it was almost 11:30 p.m. The store was closed, lights off except for the eerie glow of the freezer section that never shuts down. I walked out into the employee parking lot, and which was basically just a dim patch of asphalt behind the building, and instantly felt something was wrong. You know how your brain notices things before you consciously do? Everything was too quiet. No crickets, no wind, just that thick, heavy kind of silence that wraps around your ribs. Then I saw it. A car I didn't recognize parked 2 rows behind mine, engine on but lights off. I remember freezing mid-step. The engine idled quietly, almost politely. No movement. No door opening. No one calling out. Just waiting. I tried to convince myself someone was just waiting for a friend. Or scrolling their phone or lost. Anything normal? But the way the car was angled toward the employee exit made my stomach sink. I kept my head down and walked to my own car as if nothing was wrong. I remember fumbling my keys so badly my hands shook. When I finally got the door unlocked, I got in, shut the door, and immediately hit the lock button twice. When I started my car, the one behind me flicked its headlights on. That was my first confirmation that something was actually genuinely wrong. I reversed out, trying to stay calm. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe they were leaving too. I pulled onto the main road. The car pulled out right behind me. Not just following, like matching every speed change, every turn, staying 2 car lengths behind the entire time. If I slowed down, they slowed down. If I changed lanes, so did they. I didn't drive home. I remembered something my dad always told me. If anyone ever follows you, go somewhere public. Never lead them to where you sleep. So I headed for the only 24-hour place in town, a gas station about 10 minutes away. On the way there, I tested them. I turned into a random neighborhood. They followed. I circled around a block. They followed. I pulled into a cul-de-sac and drove out the other side. They followed. By this point, my entire body was buzzing, every sense on overdrive. My phone battery was at 6%, because of course it was, and my hands were shaking too hard to risk calling the police while driving. When I finally got close to the gas station, I did the only thing I could think of. I sped up. Not enough to look suspicious, but enough to create space. Then, at the last second, I swerved hard into the gas station entrance. The car behind me slammed the brakes, way too late, and sped past. They didn't stop, didn't turn around, just kept going down the road, accelerating. I parked directly in front of the gas station doors and went inside, trying to look calm, but probably looking like I had sprinted a marathon. The clerk looked up, startled. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said. "Someone was following me." He told me I wasn't the first person to say that other women had come in with similar stories. Same kind of car, same behavior. Always late at night. Police suspected someone was waiting for lone employees leaving work. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I filed a report. Nothing ever came of it. No plates, no cameras. But about a month later, a similar car was spotted in another town following a young woman into a parking garage. She managed to get away too. To this day, I don't know who was in that car or what they wanted. But I know one thing. If I had driven home instead of to a public place, I would not be telling this story. For a few days, I convinced myself everything was fine. That the person in the car moved on, that I wasn't in danger anymore, that it was just a random, creepy encounter that ended the second the car drove past that gas station. But that's the problem with fear. It lingers in places you don't expect. On the 3rd day after the incident, something strange happened. I was walking out of class when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Why'd you run?" I stopped walking immediately. My hands went cold. I reread the message over and over. hoping I was misunderstanding it. Then another text came in seconds later. You looked right at me. I had never seen the driver's face. The windows were tinted so dark they might as well have been painted. For him to say I looked at him, either he was lying or he had gotten out of the car at some point. Without me noticing, I blocked the number. Immediately, no hesitation. But blocking a phone number doesn't block a person from the real world. That night, I told my parents everything they insisted I stay home the next few days. My dad even offered to drive me to work. I almost said yes. I wanted to say yes. But a part of me felt like I was overreacting. I went to work anyway. My manager, who barely looked up from her desk most days, actually walked me to the employee lot when my shift ended. Everything looked normal. No strange cars, no headlights, no idling engines. But when I got home, something was taped to our mailbox. A folded piece of printer paper? No name, no address, no envelope. Just taped there with a single strip of clear tape. I brought it inside and handed it straight to my dad. He opened it while my mom hovered over his shoulder. At first he didn't react, which made it worse. He just stared at the paper for a full 10 seconds before finally handing it to me. It was a printed screenshot of the gas station's parking lot at night. Zoomed in. Grainy. But clear enough to recognize my car. And me. Standing outside talking to the clerk. Someone had taken a photo of me from across the street. My mom wanted to call the police immediately. My dad wanted us to pack bags and stay with my aunt. My brother wanted to sit on the porch all night with a baseball bat. But the police did come, eventually. 2 officers stood in our living room while I explained everything. The car, the following, the blocked number, the photo. They were sympathetic, but there wasn't much they could do. No plate number, no clear face, no crime technically committed. One of the officers said something that stayed with me longer than anything else that night. People like this don't usually stop on their own. They escalate. They suggested home cameras, different routes to work, staying in groups, not being alone at night. I didn't sleep at all. Every sound outside made me flinch. Every passing car felt like it was slowing down too much. Even my own reflection in the dark windows freaked me out for a while. Nothing else happened. No more messages, no more notes, no strange cars. But exactly 11 days after the photo showed up, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to a noise outside my window. A soft, slow crunch of footsteps on gravel. Too controlled to be an animal, too close to the house to be normal. I sat up in bed, frozen. My room was on the ground floor. There was only a thin layer of drywall and glass separating me from whoever or whatever was outside. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then I heard it. The soft click of someone trying my window. Gently, carefully, testing it. Testing me. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, to shout, to do something. But I was paralyzed, completely locked in place. It felt like hours, but it was probably seconds before the footsteps moved again. Not away. To the next window, my brother's window. Another careful click. Then my parents' bedroom window. My dad must have heard it too, because suddenly his voice thundered through the house. "Who's out there?" The footsteps turned into pounding, frantic running. Fast. Faster than I thought a person could move in the dark. My dad threw open the front door and sprinted outside, but whoever it was had already disappeared into the trees behind our neighborhood. We never saw the person's face. Never learned their name. Never found out what they wanted. But they wanted something, and they were getting bolder. After the window incident, things changed completely. My sense of safety didn't just vanish, it imploded. Every sound in the house made me jump. Every car passing slowly on our street made me sweat. I stopped going out at night entirely. My dad drove me to work, picked me up, and even then, I refused to park in the employee lot. I would circle the block until he pulled up, just to make sure no one was waiting. The police were technically involved now. After the broken window scare, they increased patrols around our neighborhood. Officers came by a few times each night for a week, walking the perimeter, checking doors and windows. They were polite, professional, but I could tell they were frustrated. There wasn't much to go on. The car I'd first noticed, still no plate, still no identity. The text had stopped, but the photo and the window attempt were chilling enough to make the threat feel like it was still looming a week after the window incident. Something new started. Little things. The mailbox started getting tampered with again, but this time not a note. Just open, flung, or sometimes a single envelope shoved inside with no writing. No fingerprints. Nothing identifiable. Then my car was hit. Not smashed, nothing obvious. But when I pulled into the driveway after a shift one night, a faint dent on the driver's side caught my eye. It was fresh. Someone had scraped it intentionally to scare me. I remember standing in the driveway that night, staring at the mark, hands trembling, feeling like the walls were closing in. That was when my dad suggested security cameras, something more than just the small cameras we had covering the front porch. We installed them that night, multiple angles, infrared motion detection. It didn't stop the escalation. One evening, my roommate from college came over. She hadn't been aware of the situation, and I was shaking just talking about the events my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One word. Alone. She looked at me, pale, but I didn't even respond. I knew she'd see the seriousness in my eyes. I blocked the number immediately, again. Then came the first near abduction attempt. I was walking from my car to the front door after work. It was late, around 11 p.m., and the neighborhood was quiet. The second the door closed behind me, headlights appeared on the street. Not a slow car following like before, but this one pulled directly up to the curb where I was standing. I froze. My brain short-circuited. A man leaned slightly out of the window. I couldn't see his face clearly. The streetlight was behind him, but I knew he meant to intimidate me. My legs moved on autopilot. I backed toward my house, fumbling for keys. He rolled the window down just slightly. "Hey," he said casually, almost friendly. That was the scariest part. Normal tone, no screaming, no immediate threat, but the intention was obvious. My heart was racing. I fumbled with the door handle, finally getting the lock disengaged. I ran inside, slammed the door, locked it, and called 911. My voice was shaking. I told the dispatcher exactly what was happening. They sent officers immediately. By the time they arrived, he was gone, but they took the report, examined the street, and told me again, quietly but firmly, "This person is dangerous. They're escalating, and it's only going to get worse if they aren't caught soon." From that night, my life became a game of avoidance. I changed routines constantly. I stopped walking outside after dark, didn't go anywhere alone, and even when I went to work, I left earlier, took alternate routes, and always had someone with me when possible. My family installed deadbolts, motion sensors, and extra locks on every door and window. I even kept a baseball bat under my bed. Every step felt like living inside a cage I couldn't escape. And yet, I couldn't hide completely. I had responsibilities, school, work, and those things meant I had to go outside, had to expose myself. And so every time I stepped out, the paranoia clung to me like a second skin. Then, a week after the near abduction, the police got their first break. One of the neighborhood cameras caught something. A car parked across the street for almost 2 hours during the window incident. Grainy, but enough to see a vague outline of the driver. Not a face. Just a posture, the way he leaned over the wheel. Not enough for a solid ID, but enough to confirm. He had been watching me for hours, probably days, and he knew exactly when I was alone. It felt like my life had narrowed down to two possibilities. Either I survived this escalation or I didn't. Every trip outside, every ordinary walk to my car became a psychological minefield. And the worst part? The person knew how terrified I was. They wanted me to know. At night, I didn't sleep. I kept a light on, double-checked locks, and lay awake listening. The footsteps didn't return, but the feeling of being hunted never left. Every creak of the house sounded like him. Every car stopping at a light down the street felt like he had followed me again. I realized then what my dad had meant. People like this don't usually stop. They escalate. They push boundaries. They test limits. And if they think you're afraid, they keep going. By now, I was fully aware that this could end very badly if I misstepped. But one thing was clear. I could either live paralyzed by fear, or I could prepare for a confrontation. The final confrontation was coming, whether I wanted it or not. The night it all came to a head started like any other by then. Silent, tense, and impossibly slow. I had just gotten home from a late shift. My dad had insisted on driving me, and I double-checked every lock and sensor before stepping inside. My heart was still pounding from the walk from the car. I had rehearsed what I would do if the person tried anything again. Stay inside, call 911 immediately, and avoid confrontation at all costs. But I also knew that eventually avoidance would fail. About 30 minutes after I had settled into my room, the house alert system started beeping. Motion detected near the back door. I froze. My hands gripped the phone like it was my only lifeline. Through the window, I saw a shadow moving, crouched low, deliberate. The intruder had come back, I whispered to my parents, and my dad went to the front to intercept, while my mom grabbed the baseball bat we kept by the bedroom door. I dialed 911, trying to stay calm enough to give the dispatcher our address, our situation, and the fact that the intruder was inside the property perimeter. The shadow moved closer to the back porch. I could hear the faint scrape of something against the wooden deck, the subtle click of shoes against the planks. My dad's voice rang out from the front yard, firm, commanding, "I know you're there. Stay where you are." The figure hesitated. For a brief moment, I thought maybe the presence of my family had been enough. But then the shadow shifted and started moving toward the back door. Panic clawed at me. I grabbed the bat, gripped it so tightly my knuckles turned white. The dispatcher's voice was calm but urgent. "Stay on the line. Do not engage unless you have to. Help is on the way." I stayed crouched behind the bedroom door. My dad's shouting echoed through the house. Then a new sound, the unmistakable jingle of a window latch being tested. Not the back door this time, the living room window. The intruder was trying every entry point, one after another, carefully, systematically. Minutes stretched like hours. Then, finally, I heard sirens in the distance. My dad shouted something I couldn't make out over the blood pounding in my ears. The intruder bolted, fast, without warning. I heard them stumble over the gravel driveway and then a car engine roaring to life. The police arrived seconds later, surrounding the property, sweeping the yard, the driveway, even the tree line behind our house. No one was there. No car. Just the lingering smell of someone having been close enough to touch the walls. The officers reassured us, but the tension didn't lift entirely. They said it was likely the same person who had followed me and left the photo, the texts, and the dent. Someone familiar with the neighborhood, someone bold enough to test my family's boundaries. They recommended increased patrols, more cameras, and a neighborhood watch, but they admitted that catching someone like this was incredibly difficult. In the following weeks, we implemented every safety measure we could. Cameras, motion sensors, alarms, double locks, neighborhood notifications, and a personal safety plan for every family member. I never walked alone at night again. I drove different routes to work. I kept the pepper spray in my bag and a phone fully charged at all times. The intruder was never caught. There was no dramatic arrest, no chase through the streets. Just an invisible line drawn between me and a person who had tested it, and the uneasy relief that came from surviving the night. The experience changed me. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, cautious about late-night schedules. Skeptical of strangers' intentions, I realized that most people live their lives unaware of the kind of danger that can stalk you quietly, incrementally, testing the limits of fear. And I realized that sometimes survival isn't about heroism or confrontation. It's about planning, awareness, and instinct. To this day, I can drive past that gas station, past that parking lot, and feel a flicker of tension in my chest. But I also know I made choices that saved me. I stayed alive because I respected the danger, and sometimes that's all that matters.